Welcome to the Audrain Museum Network here on YouTube. If you like these videos, and we know you do because they've been millions of views, be sure to subscribe. And also, of course, hit the bell icon to be notified when we put up great new content. Welcome back to another look inside the exhibition, Collecting Moving Forward, Youngtimer Classics. And I'm here once again with the estimable Jay Leno,
yes,
who has asked the question, can you have performance and comfort? And I think an answer can be found in this 1988 BMW M5, one of my favorite cars in this exhibition.
It's interesting. I worked at a BMW dealership years ago. The precursor to this was the Bavaria. Do you remember those?
My brother had one.
Yeah, that had the six-cylinder. And BMW made the greatest six-cylinder engine of all time, just the smoothest. That CLS Coupe was just a fantastic car. And I guess this is the final iteration of that. You know, it's so funny, the malaise of the 80s, cars are pretty awful. And 300 horsepower was seen as pretty much the top of the game, the top of the range. You can't look at it through contemporary eyes. You have to, when it came out, that was Corvette power in a four-door sedan.
This was the fastest production four-door sedan when it was new. And it still has great performance today. You and I have had this conversation a lot about what horsepower means. And the combination of horsepower, torque, the way the power curve is delivered, and weight really makes the driving experience. And this car is a really satisfying driving experience in today's 500 horsepower family sedan world.
It's interesting you say that because I thought the Bentley Turbo R was the fastest accelerating four-door sedan you could buy. I have an 89 Turbo R. I bought the first one in the country. I bought it in '88, and it was billed in their ads as the fastest accelerating four-door. So it's interesting to see which one was actually faster.
Things were moving very quickly. This is in '88,
right.
Introduced in '87. So when it was introduced, it was the fastest. And you know, to the point that we talk about a lot, the fact that we all thought the performance was completely gone in the late 1970s. We'd never see it again. And the fact that the BMW put this M, their motorsport division badge, on this car with the uprated suspension, the engine, that wonderful gearbox, this terrific 5-speed gearbox. And this is a car that, to me, one of my favorite cars on the planet is the Maserati Quattroporte, the first one from 1963, which is this whole idea of a really fast four-door sedan. And that idea is so compelling to me because I like usable performance.
Right. Now ask me if this is a modern correlation to this car. The Dodge Charger with the Hellcat engine, that's a four-door. You get the dog dish hubcaps and whatnot. It looks like just some sort of police detective guy's car, you know, and it's this incredibly fast vehicle. I think that would be a worthy successor for the title to this. But 300 horsepower in '88 was like 500 horsepower today, I think.
Exactly. And also this era BMW also really appeals to me. I love the lines of this car, the way it is very, very much of the period because it's very angular. And yet there are little details everywhere that are so wonderful.
Yeah, I like it. It has the Bavaria's shape. Again, I hate the big clunky bumpers and all the other stuff they had to put on in the 80s. But that's okay. I mean, the great savior is the manual transmission. The fact that you got a four-door sedan with a manual transmission, if you were some sort of middle manager kind of guy and you had a family, well, this is the car you could do. Well, what was that Gary Cooper movie where they raced the... it was Gary Cooper and Friendly Persuasion. Friendly is something like that. But remember, they're going to church.
I'll have to look it up.
He meets the other buggy. They're Amish, and they have a horse race, and the wives are going crazy. This is that same kind of car, that sort of sleeper Q-ship sort of deal, you know.
It's also interesting as time passes. Growing up with these cars and seeing them on the road, yes, the European smaller bumpers definitely suit the design better because that's how it was conceived. But these fit in my eye with the bumpers. And sometimes when I see owners that have converted to the European bumpers, it looks like someone with a slight underbite or something. I think the front ends just don't seem to have the presence that these have. I don't mind these bumpers as much as some of the bumpers of the era, which were really
they just seem like police car, push that off the road kind of bumpers, you know.
Which is fine for an M5.
Yeah,
so they want to do that, you know.
Yeah.
Get out of my way.
But I mean, it's a fascinating car. I mean, the AMG Mercedes sort of came off of this idea.
Exactly.
They sort of they started with the Bavaria, and then they got the horsepower up and kept the manual shift. And you know, I worked in the era of the TII and the 2002, and these are like just bigger versions of those.
Exactly.
But that six-cylinder was so silky smooth; it was wonderfully amazing.
When you think about the performance, the 2002 Turbo, which is an incredible car, extraordinary performance, but very much a sort of a peaky sports car driving.
Right.
You have to be on, you have to pay attention all the time. This is one of those cars that really appeals to me. I think appeals to a lot of collectors today because you can use it in everyday traffic, but then you put your foot down and downshift, and then it's an absolute tiger.
Yeah, wonderful driving car, wonderful seats, very comfortable. And I like this style of BMW. The modern look I don't care for so much, where this still had pretty sporting pretensions to it. I like the full complement of gauges. You know, for a while there, the top-of-the-line BMW started, the dashboard looked like the front desk at the Sheraton, you know, a big piece of wood, you know, some minimalist gauge. It didn't feel like a sports car. To me, I think you can get all the excitement of driving a sports car while you have the wife and kids in the back, you know, or in the front, whatever it may be.
It's an interesting point, too, because BMW's relationship to Mercedes, their German arch rival, was always an interesting one because they wanted to have the same space in the upper middle class and luxury car market, but with that sporty edge.
Right.
So they had to have some of the luxury cues that they thought, if we're going to have a conquest of a Mercedes buyer, then he or she wants to see certain things in the interior and the design, but yet we want to make sure that we stay true to our sporting nature.
Well, I think this is the era of Bob Lutz, wasn't it?
Yes.
Bob Lutz, the American, we know him from Chrysler here, but he's the man that coined the term the ultimate driving machine. That was his idea for BMW. And it's such a simple phrase, but it conveys everything that you want. It's not racing, it's driving, the ultimate driving machine.
And
the fact that it's a machine, yeah. I mean, all of those things, I thought that was quite brilliant. He really defined this genre of car, of which Mercedes-Benz and even the Taurus show and
had to all react
others,
to. Yeah.
They all came after this. But yeah, it's a brilliant car. You know, just big windows. They didn't cut it down or try to make it more racy. It was just a really fast version of a four-door sedan.
And you remind me of something else in this whole concept of collecting moving forward. You just named three really interesting cars from the 1980s that we sort of, I don't say took for granted, but sort of noted at the time and then sort of forgot about as newer cars came along.
Yeah.
But realizing that in that period in the late 80s, you had Ford Taurus show. I mean, that was incredible and still is incredible today for the kind of usable performance that we want in a collector car. So, yet another example of how collecting moving forward speaks to us today. Jay, maybe we'll take a look at another one. Stay tuned.